The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 2, Section 2, Jnana Yoga, The Freedom of the Soul. Lecture delivered in London, 5th November 1896. The Katta Upanishad, which we have been studying, was written much later than that to which we now turn the Chandogya. The language is more modern and the thoughts more organized. In the older Upanishad, the language is very archaic, like that of the hymn portion of the Vedas, and one has to wade sometimes through quite a mass of unnecessary things to get at the essential doctrine. The ritualistic literature about which I told you, which forms the second division of the Vedas, has left a good deal of its mark upon this old Upanishad, so that more than half of it is still ritualistic. There is, however, one great gain in studying the very old Upanishads. You trace, as it were, the historical growth of spiritual ideas. In the more recent Upanishads, the spiritual ideas have been collected and brought into one piece or one place. As in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, which we may perhaps look upon the last of the Upanishad. You do not find any inkling of this ritualistic idea. The Gita is like a bouquet composed of the beautiful flowers of spiritual thoughts collected from the Upanishad. But in Gita, you cannot study the rise of spiritual ideas. You cannot trace them to their source. To do that has been pointed out by many, you must study the Vedas, the great idea of holiness that has the great idea of holiness that has been attached to these books has preserved them more than any other books in the world from mutilation. In them, thoughts at their highest and at their lowest have all been preserved. The essential and non-essential, the most ennobling teachings and the simplest matter of detail stand side by side, for nobody has dared to touch them. Commentators came and tried to smoothen them and to bring out the wonderful new ideas from the old things. They tried to find spiritual ideas even in even even the most ordinary statements, but the text remain and as such they are the most wonderful historical study. We all know that in the spirituals of every religion changes. In the scriptures, the scriptures of every religion, changes were made to suit the growing spirituality of the later times. One word was changed here and another put in there, and so on. This probably has not been done with the Vedic literature, or if ever done. It is the most imperceptible it is the most imperceptible. So, we have this great advantage. We are able to study thoughts in their original significance, to note how they developed and how from materialistic ideas, finer and finer spiritual ideas are evolved until they attain their greatest height in the Vedanta. Description of some of the old manners, the customs are also there, but they do not appear much in the Upanishad. The language used in peculiar mnemonic, mnemonic. The writers of this book simply jotted down these lines has helped to remember certain facts which they suppose were already well known. In a narrative, perhaps, which they are telling, they take it for granted that it is very well known to everyone they are addressing. Thus, a great difficulty arises. We scarcely know the real meaning of any one of these stories because the traditions have never died out, and the little that is left of them has been very much exaggerated Many new interpretations have been put upon them, so that when you find them in the Puranas, they have already become lyrical poets. Just as in the West, we find these prominent facts in the political development of the Western race that they cannot bear absolute rule that they are always trying to prevent any man from ruling over them and are gradually advancing to higher and higher democratic ideas and higher physical liberty. And so, metaphysics, in Indian metaphysics, exactly the same phenomena appears in the development of the spiritual life. The multiplicity of God gave place to one God of the universe, and in the Upanishad there is a rebellion even against that one God. Not only was the idea of many governors of the universe ruling their destinies unbearably, but it was also intolerable that there should be one person ruling this universe. This is the first thing that strikes us. The idea grows and grows until it attains its climax. In almost all of the Upanishad, we find the climax coming at the last, and that is the dethroning of the God of the universe. The personality of the God vanishes, the impersonality comes. God is no more a person, no more a human being, however magnified and exaggerated, who rules the universe, but he has become an embodied principle in every being, immanent in whole universe. It would be illogical to go from the personal God to the impersonal, and at the same time to leave man as a person. So the personal man is broken down and man as principle is built up. The person is only a phenomena, the principle is behind it. Thus, from both sides simultaneously, we find the breaking down of the personality and approach towards principles. The personal God approaching the impersonal, the personal man approaching the impersonal man. Then comes the succeeding stage of the gradual convergence of the two advancing lines of the impersonal God and impersonal man. And the Upanishad embodies the stages through which these two lines at last become one. And the last word of each Upanishad is Thou art that. Thou art that. There is but one eternally blissful principle. There is but one eternally blissful principle, and the one is manifesting itself as all these varieties. Then came the philosophers. The work of the Upanishads seems to end at that point. The next was taken up by the philosophers. The framework was given them by the Upanishad, and they had to fill it the details. So many questions would arise naturally. Taking for granted that there is but one impersonal principle which is manifesting itself in all these manifold forms, how is it that the one becomes many? It is another way of putting the same old question, which is in its crude form, comes into human heart, has the inquiry into the cause of evil and so forth. Why does evil exist in the world and what is its cause? But the same question has now become refined and abstracted. No more is it asked from the platform of the senses why we are unhappy, but from the platform of the philosophy. How is it that this one principle become manifold? And the answer, as we have seen, the best answer that India has produced in the theory of Maya, which says that it really has not become manifold, that it really has not lost any of its real nature. Manifoldness is only apparent. Man is only apparently a person, but in reality, he is a personal being. God is the personal only apparently, but really, he is impersonal being. Even in the answers, there have been succeeding stages, and philosophers have varied in their opinion. All Indian philosophers did not admit the theory of Maya. Possibly most of them did not. There are dualists with a crude sort of dualism, who would not allow the question to be asked, but stifled it at its very birth. They said, "You have no right to ask such question. You have no right to ask for an explanation. It is simply the will of God, and we have to submit to it quietly. There is no liberty for the human soul. Everything is predestined. That what we shall do, have, enjoy, and suffer. And when suffering comes, it is our duty to endure it patiently. If we do not, we shall be punished all the more. How do we know that? Because the Vedas say so. And thus they have their text and their meanings and they want to enforce them. There are others who, though not admitting the theory of Maya, stand midway. They say that the whole of this creation forms, as it were, the body of God. The God is the soul of all the souls and the whole of nature. In the case of individual soul, contractions contractions comes from evil doings. When a man does anything evil, his soul begins to contract and his power is diminished and goes on decreasing until he does good works. When it explains again, one idea seems to be common in all the Indian system, and I think in every system in the world, whether they know it or not. That is what I should call the divinity of man. There is no one system in the world, no real religion, which does not hold the idea that human soul, whatever it be or whatever its relation to God, is essentially pure and perfect. Whether expression in the language of mythology, allegory, or philosophy, its real nature is blessedness and power, not weakness and misery. Somehow or other, this misery has come. The crude system may call it a personized or personified evil or devil or an ahirim, ahiriman, ahiriman to explain how this misery came. Other system may try to make a god and a devil in one, who makes some people miserable and others happy without any reason whatever. Others again, more thoughtful, bring in the theory of Maya and so forth. But one fact stands out clearly, and it is with this that we have to deal. After all, these philosophical ideas and system are but gymnastics to the mind or of the mind, intellectual exercise. The one great idea that to me seems to be clear and comes out through masses of superstition is every country and every religion is the one luminous idea that man is divine, that divinity is our nature. Whatever else comes is a mere super impossible, as the Vedant calls it, something that has been super impossible, but that divine nature never dies. In the most degraded as well as in the most saintly, it is ever present. It has to be called out and it works itself out. We have to ask and will manifest itself. The people of old knew that fire lived in the flint and in dry wood, but friction was necessary to call it out. So, this fire of freedom and purity is the nature of ever soul, and not the quality, because qualities can be acquired and therefore can be lost. The soul is one with freedom, and the soul is one with existence, and the soul is one with knowledge. Satchitanand, existence, knowledge, bliss absolute. In the nature, the birthright of the soul and all the manifestation that we see are its expression, dimly or brightly manifesting itself. Even death is but a manifestation of real existence, birth and death, life and decay, degeneration and regeneration. are all manifestation of that oneness. So, knowledge, however, is manifest itself, either as ignorant or as learning, is but the manifestation of the same chitta and essence of the knowledge. The essence of the knowledge, the difference is only in the degree and not in kind. The difference in knowledge between the lowest worm that crawls under our feet and the highest genius that the world may produce is only a degree and not a calf kind. Vedantin thinker boldly says that the enjoyment of this life, even the most degraded joys, are but manifestation of that one divine bliss and the essence of the soul. This idea seems to be most prominent in Vedanta, and as I have said, it appears to me that every religion holds it. I have yet to know the religion which does not which does not. It is the one universal idea working through all religions. Take the Bible for instance. You find there the allegorical statement that the first man Adam was pure and his purity was obliterated by his evil deeds afterward. It is clear from this allegory that they thought that the nature of the primitive man was perfect. The purity that we see, the weaknesses that we feel are but superimposible on that nature. And subsequently, history of the Christian religion shows that they also believe in the possibility, nay, the certain of regaining that old state. This is the whole history of the Bible, Old and New Testament together. So, with the Mohammedans, they also believe in Adam and the purity of Adam. And through Mohammedan, the way was open to regain that lost state. So, with the Buddhists, they believe in the state called Nirvana, which is beyond this relative world. It is exactly the same as the Brahman of the Vedantins, and the whole system of the Buddhists is found upon the idea of regaining that lost state of nirvana. In every system, we find that this doctrine present that you cannot get anything which is not yours already. You are indebted to nobody in this universe. You claim your own birthright as it has been almost poetically expressed by the great Vedantin philosopher in the title of one of his book, The Attainment of Our Own Emperor. That emperor is ours. We have lost it and we have to regain it. The Vadin, the Vadin, however, says that this losses of the emperor was the hallucination. You never lost it. This is the only difference, although all the systems agree so far that we had the emperor and that we have lost it. They gave us varied advice as to how to regain it. One says that you must perform certain ceremonies, pay certain sums of money to certain ideas or idols, eat certain sort of food, live in a peculiar fashion to regain that emperor. Another says that if you weep and prostrate yourself and ask pardon of some being beyond nature, you will regain that empire. Again, another says, if you love such a being with all your heart, you will regain that empire. All these varied advices is in the Upanishad. As I go on, you will find it out. So, but the last and the greatest counsel is that you need not weep at all. You need not go through all these ceremonies and need not take any notice of how to regain your empire because you never lost it. Why should you go to seek for what you never lost? You are pure already. You are free already. If you think you are free, free you are this moment. And if you think you are bound, bound you will be. This is a very bold statement. As I told you, at the beginning of the course, I shall have to speak to you very boldly. It may frighten you now, but when you think over it and realize it in your own life, then you will come to know that what I say is true. For supposing that freedom is not your nature, by no manner of means you can become free. Supposing you were free, and in some way you lost that freedom. That shows that you were not free to begin with. Had you been free, what could have made you lose it? The independence can never be made dependent. If it is really dependent, its independence was a hallucination. Of the two sides, then, which will you take? If you say that the soul was by its own nature pure and free, and naturally follows that there was nothing in this universe which could make it bound or limited. But if there was anything in nature which could bind the soul, it naturally follows that it was not free. And your statement that it was free is a delusion. So, if it is possible for us to attain to freedom, the conclusion is inevitable that the soul is by its nature free. It cannot be otherwise. Freedom means independence of anything outside, and that means that nothing outside itself could work upon it as a cause. The soul is causeless, and from this follows all the great ideas that we have. You cannot establish this morality of the soul unless you grant that it is by its nature free, or in the other words, that it cannot be acted upon by anything outside, for that is an effect produced by some outside cause. I drink poison and I die, thus showing that my body can be acted upon by something outside, that is called poison. But if it be true that the soul is free, it naturally follows that nothing can affect it, and it can never die. Freedom, immorality, blessedness, all depends upon the soul, being to which will you take. Either make the first of delusion or make the second a delusion. Certainly I will make the second a delusion. It is more consonant with all my feelings and aspirations. I am perfectly aware that I am free of by nature, and I will not admit that this bondage is true and my freedom is delusion. This discussion goes on in all philosophies, in some forms or others. Even in the most modest philosophies, you find the same discussion arising. There are two parties. One say that there is no soul, the other that the idea of the soul is the delusion produced by the repeated transit of particles of matter, bringing about the combination which you call the body or the brain, that the impression of the freedom is the result of the vibration and motion and continuous transit of these particles. There were Buddhistic sects who held the same view and illustrated it by this example. If you take a torch and wriggle it round rapidly, there will be a circle of light. That circle does not really exist because the torch is changing place every moment. We are but bundles of the little practice particles which is their rapid whirling produced the delusion of permanent soul. The other party states that in the rapid succession of thoughts, matter occurs as a delusion and does not really exist. So we see on one side claiming that spirit is a delusion and other that matter is a delusion. Which side will you take? Of course, we will take the spirit and deny matter. The argument are similar for both. Only one, the spirit side, the argument is little stronger. No, for nobody has been ever seen what matter is. We can only feel ourselves. I never knew a man who could feel matter outside of himself. Nobody was ever able to jump outside of himself. Therefore, the argument is little stronger on the side of the spirit. Secondly, the spirit theory. Secondly, the spirit theory explains the universe, while materialism does not. Since the materialistic explanation is illogical, if if you boil down all the philosophies and analyze them, you will find that they are reduced to one or other of these two positions. So here, to in the more intricate form, in a more philosophical form, we find the same question about a delusion and the others, that the second is the delusion. And of course, we side with the second in believing that our bondage is a delusion. The solution of the Vedant is that we are not bound, we are free already. Not only so, but to say or to think that we are bound is dangerous. It is a mistake. It is self hypnotism. As soon as you say, I am bound, I am weak, I am helpless, woe unto you, you revive one more chain upon yourself. Do not say it, do not think it. I have heard of a man who lived in the forest and used to repeat day and night, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am the blessed one. And the one day a tiger fell upon him and dragged him all away to kill him. People on the other side of the river saw it and heard the voice so long as voice remained in him, saying Shivoham, Shivoham. Even in the very jaws of that tiger, there have been many such men. There have been cases of men who, while being cut to pieces, have blessed their enemies. I am he, so art thou. I am pure and perfect, and so are all my enemies. You are he, and I am, and so I. That is the position of the strength. Nevertheless, there are great and wonderful things in the religion of the dualist. Wonderful is the idea of the personal God, apart from nature, whom we worship and love. Sometimes this idea is very soothing. But, says the Vedant, the soothing is something like the effect that comes from an opiate, not natural. It brings weakness in the long run, and what this world wants today, more than it ever did some, is strength. It is weakness, says the Vedant, which is the cause of all misery in this world. Weakness is the one cause of suffering. We become miserable because we are weak. We lie, steal, kill, commit other crimes because we are weak. Where there is nothing to weaken us, there is no death nor sorrow. We are miserable through delusion. We are miserable through delusion. Give up the delusion and the whole thing vanishes. It is the plain and simple indeed. Through all these philosophical discussions and tremendous mental gymnastic, we come to this one religious idea, the simplest in the whole world. The monastic Vedanta is the simplest form in which you can put truth. To teach dualism was a tremendous mistake made in India and elsewhere because people did not look at the ultimate principles but only thought of the process, which is very intricate indeed. To many, this tremendous psychological and philosophical and logical propositions were alarming. They thought these things could not be made universal, could not be followed in everyday life as practical, and that under the guise of such philosophy, much laxity of life would arise. But I do not believe at all that monastic idea preached to the world would produce immorality and weakness. On the contrary, I have a reason to believe that it is the only remedy there is. If this be the truth, why let people drink ditch the water on when the stream of life is flowing by? If this be the true, that they are all pure, why not at this moment teach it to the whole world? Why not teach it with the voice of thunder to every man that is born, to saints and sinners, men, women, and children, to all the men on the throne, and to all the men sweeping the streets? It appears now a very big and very great undertaking to make it appears very startling, but that is because of superstition, nothing else. By eating all sorts of bad and indigestible food, or by starving ourselves, we are incompetent to eat a good meal. We have listened to the words of the weakness from our childhood. You hear people say that they do not believe in ghosts, but at the same time, there are very few who do not get a little creepy sensation in the dark. It is simply superstition. So, with all religious superstitions, there are people in this country who, if I told them there was no such being as the devil, will think all religion is gone. Many people have said to them, Many people have said to me, how can there be religion without a devil? How can there be a religion without someone to direct us? How can live without being ruled by somebody? We live to be so treated because we have become used to it. We are not happy until we feel we have been reprimanded by somebody every day. The same superstition, but however terrible it may seem now, the time will come when we shall look back, each one of us, and smile at every one of those superstitions which covered the pure and eternal soul, and repeat with the gladness, with truth, with strength, I am free, and I was free, and I always will be free. This monistic idea will come out of Vedanta, and it is the one idea that deserves to live. The scriptures may perish tomorrow. Whether this idea first flashes into the brains of Hebrews or the people living in the Arctic religion, nobody cares. For this is the truth, and the truth is eternal. The truth itself teaches that it is not the special property of any individual or nation. Man, animal, gods are all common recipient of all this truth. Let them all receive it. Why make life miserable? Why let people fall into all sort of superstitions? I will give 10,000 lives. I will give 10,000 lives if 20 of them will give up their superstitions. Not only in this country, but in the land of its very birth. If you tell people this truth, they are frightened. They say this idea is from sannyasins who give up the poor householders, who give up the world and live in the forest. For them, it is all right. But for us, poor householders, we must have all have some sort of fear. We must have ceremonies and so on. Dualistic ideas have ruled the world a long enough, and this is the result. Why not make a new experiment? It may take ages for all minds to receive monism, but why not begin now? If we have told it to 20% in our lives, we have done a great work. There is one idea which often militates against it. It is this: it is all very well to say, I am the pure, the blessed, but I cannot show it always in my life. That is true. The idea is always very hard. Every child that is born sees the sky overhead where very far away. But is that any reason why we should not look towards the sky? Would it mend matter to go towards superstitions? If we cannot get nectar, would it mend? If we cannot get nectar, would it mend matter for us to drink poison? Would it be any help for us because we cannot realize the truth immediately to go into darkness and yield to weakness and superstitions? I have no objection to dualism in many of its forms. I like most of them, but I have objections to every form of teachings which inculcates weakness. This is one question I put to every man, woman, and child when they are physical, mental, and spiritual training. Are you strong? Are you feel do you feel strength? For I know it is true alone that gives strength. I know that truth alone gives life and nothing but going towards reality will make us strong, and none will reach truth until he is strong. Every system, therefore, which weakens the mind, makes the one superstition, makes one mob, makes one desire, one sort of wild impossibilities, mysteries, and superstitions. I do not like because its effect is dangerous. Such system never bring any good. Such things create morbidity in the mind, make it weak, so weak that of in course of time it will in course of time it will so weak that in course of time it will be almost impossible to receive truth or live up to it. Strength, therefore, is the one thing needful. Strength is the medicine for the world's disease. Strength is the medicine which the poor must have when tyrannized over by the rich. Strength is the medicine that the ignorant must have when oppressed by the learned. It is the medicine that sinners must have when tyrannized over by other sinners. And nothing gives such strength as this idea of monism. Nothing makes us more so moral as this idea of monism. Nothing makes us work so well our best, at our best and the highest as when all the responsibility are thrown upon ourselves. I challenge every one of you. How will you behave? You how will you behave if I put a little baby in your hands? Your whole world or whole life will be changed for a moment. Whatever you may be, you must become selfish, selfless for the time being. You will give up all your criminal ideas as soon as responsibility is thrown upon you. Your whole character will change. So, if the whole responsibility is thrown upon our own shoulders, we shall be at the highest and best when we have nobody to group towards, no devil to lay our blames upon, no personal God to carry our burdens. When we are alone responsible, then we shall rise to our highest and best. I am responsible for my fate. I am of good, bringer of good upon myself. I am bringer of evil. I am pure and blessed one. We must reject all thoughts that assert the contrary. I have neither death nor fear. I have neither caste nor creed. I have neither father nor mother, nor brother, neither friend nor few, for I am existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. I am the blissful one. I am the blissful one. I am not bound either by virtues or vice. by happiness or misery. Pilgrimages and books and ceremonies can never bind me. I have neither hunger nor thirst. The body is not mine, nor I subject of the superstition and decay that come to the body. I am existence, knowledge and bliss, absolute. I am blissful one, I am blissful one. This says the Vedant is the only prayer that we should have. This is the only way to reach the goal, to tell ourselves and to tell everyone else that we are divine. And as we go on repeating this, strength comes. We who falters falters at first will get stronger and stronger, and the voice will increase in volume until the truth takes possession of our heart and courses through our veins and permeates our bodies. Delusions will vanish as the light becomes more and more effulgent. Load after load of ignorance will vanish, and then will come a time when all else has disappeared and the sun alone shines.